Yeah.
We good?
All right, it looks like we are good to go.
All righty, let's get going. Okay, before we get going, make sure you speak slow and into the mic. And when you're finished, put your microphone on mute. Okay, today is February 16th, 2021. We will start our committee meetings. This is Barberton City Council. First committee up is Streets, Sidewalks, and Lighting with Mr. Greer.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to bring to order Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting. Today is February 16th, 2021. It is 6:01 p.m., and we are virtual. All members of the committee are present. All other council members present and guests noted on my sheet and the log for GoToMeeting. Topics of discussion. Their request for legislation, there is none. Miscellaneous discussion. Is Mr. Tracy on the meeting? Lori, do you see him in the attendance?
Yeah, I'm on here.
Okay. I just have a couple questions, Mr. Tracy. Could you provide some insight as to where we're at with the road list for the 2021 resurfacing program?
Yeah, actually just got the preliminary estimates back on Friday, so we are reviewing those estimates and then making modifications to what the potential streets could be based off of those estimates. We'll have to kind of puzzle things together as far as what we can put in the bid and commit to, and then what would be alternates.
Okay. And is there a ballpark number you can provide us? I understand names are out of the equation right now, but is there a ballpark for the number of streets that we can expect, residential streets that we can expect to be on that list for 2021?
Yeah, it's going to be dependent on, the size of the street. So like as far as the length, it could be anywhere from 10 to 15 right now. And that is ballpark, but that could be one block or it could be 3 blocks. That makes a big difference. That's the difference in $50,000 or $150,000, based on the length and the width, obviously.
And, off the top of your head, obviously last year we didn't have a resurfacing program, but the year that we did have a resurfacing program, do you know the number of roads that we did? That would be in 2019.
So I don't know off the top of my head. I think I forwarded that information previously in an email. It has all the streets from 14 till 19. It's varied each year. It's kind of dependent on the other projects we have going on. So this year, we have 2nd Street, Worcester Road North, Norton Avenue. That takes up a little bit of the funding. So I don't know the number for those past years, but it's been anywhere from, potentially from 500,000 to 1.5 million, right around there. Just depends on those other projects that are going on as well.
Mm-hmm. And are we still pushing for a double larger road program this year, since we didn't do any roads last year?
Yeah, it'll be larger than what was budgeted for last year, for certain.
And I'll go back through my emails. I do vaguely recall that now and see what previous numbers. I just wanted to compare.
Yeah, if you don't have it, let me know. I'll send it to you again.
Thank you. I'll make sure the committee and other members get the numbers as well. I don't have anything else. Is there anything from committee members?
I do not have anything.
I don't have anything.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Is there any miscellaneous discussion from council? Mr. Tracy?
Yeah, I just wanted to give an update on a couple things. You probably saw a couple things come across for the potential snow parking ban that we were, we wanted to do one, but our ordinance is written to where it says there has to be 4 inches of snow already fallen, with further snow projected to fall. So, we can't, I know Akron and a couple other places had put one out preliminarily, like 6 a.m. Monday morning, where there's a parking ban. I don't have the authority to do that per our city ordinance the way it's currently written. So we are going to look at it. You know, in this case, it turned out okay because we didn't get quite as much snow as they originally were predicting. But that might be something that comes across the committee. You know, sometime this year, we're going to do our homework on what some of these other municipalities, villages, townships have written in their ordinances for such a thing. Obviously, it has to be something similar to the type of city the city of Barberton is, as far as the crisscross streets and things, and our industrial nature and stuff like that. So we're going to kind of look into that to see if we couldn't, you know, in this case, it would, you know, try to make that judgment call up front to get a little more, you know, prior notification. But I think actually just sending out the couple of notices that we sent out helped a lot, and people were very receptive to just, you know, taking that into account when they were parking the last 24 hours. Right. So it actually turned out really well. But that's just something that's written in the ordinance that we'd like to maybe take a look at for the future. Maybe make us a little bit more effective when trying to institute those types of bans.
Yeah, on the surface that makes sense. Parking ban based on the expectation, because it does fall in the middle of the night, and I could see where 4 inches fall, you know, by 2 a.m. and they need to get out there and do it, but they can't because we issued a parking ban in the middle of the night or something. So
right,
I understand completely.
So our thing. Oh, go ahead,
Mrs. Fry.
I did have something. I just got an email this afternoon, and it was about parking bans, and they wondered if we had one in place and if it's for every neighborhood, because this is a neighborhood in Columbia Heights. He didn't say what street he's on, but I said that I thought that they weren't supposed to be parking on the street when we were plowing, because of the fact that they really do a crappy job, because they have to go around the cars and that. But so going forward, what should I tell him? The person that called me.
Well, currently right now there's not a parking ban right now. So, I mean, they are able to park on the street. I mean, that's something that we can't institute it unless there's 4 inches, and that's based off of the United States Weather Bureau is what it says in the ordinance, which doesn't exist. So that is now the National Weather Service. They're able to park there. You know, if it's an issue, we can ask. You know, we have the police go up and ask them to move, but typically we won't have them move unless there's a necessity for it.
Do you mind if I jump in? This is Doherty.
Yeah, Mrs. Doherty.
Is that
I didn't copy that. What'd you say?
Mrs. Fry, could you say that again?
I asked her if the ban was in effect in the entire city and all the neighborhoods, or if it's just like downtown and places like that.
No, it would be in effect for the entire city. And if I could explain about the 4 inches, and it says the ordinance also says with a forecast of more. I'm going to give you some conjecture on my part here. I believe that, parking is at a premium in Barberton, especially downtown, but everywhere. If we do a parking ban in the middle of the night without a forewarning, my phone will ring off the hook. We would rather tell them, this is the forecast. It is scheduled for 4 inches. When it hits that, we will issue the parking ban so that citizens would know they're going to take a chance on finding a place to park their car or leaving it on the street. So it is not in effect currently. I think you understood that. What you wanted to know is if we institute a parking ban, does it go citywide? And yes, it does.
Mm-hmm. That is what I wanted to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Doherty, I'm just a little confused. Maybe you can clear it up. Are you saying that our current way it's written is sufficient enough, or?
It is sufficient. It is sufficient. I did have to ask a few people about why is it 4 inches with the forecast of more, and the answer I received was because we can pretty much control snow on the roads with salt. And then even just the actual mobile traffic helps with the removal of some of the snow or displaces some of the snow. But the answer I received was because we can control it under 4 inches. At 4 inches, that we have to put a plow down. Okay. So we try to, instead of using wear and tear on the blades, that's why the ordinance was written that way, is what I understand. And that's it's an old ordinance, so I don't know for sure if that's correct, but that's what I was told. So, and it sounds plausible. And it sounds reasonable because you don't want to tear up your plows unnecessarily if salting would control at least some of the snow. And it sounds right to me, but I can't tell you that for sure. That's just what I was told. Right. But it does save on the wear and tear of our plow trucks and specifically the blades.
Right. Well, thank you for that insight. Mr. Tracy, I'm sure we'll figure that out and hash details out when that time comes.
Yeah, it would have to be an ordinance change, legislation change to do it differently. Mm-hmm. Just letting you know.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Is there any other miscellaneous discussion from council or the body? Admin? Mr. Tracy?
Yeah, I wanted to add as well that we're also looking at a potential an LED upgrade lighting agreement with First Energy for streetlights. This program would be based upon replace upon failure. So right now, when First Energy goes out to replace a streetlight with, that has been called in as a burnout, they'll go out and replace it with the same technology type of light. So with this program, they would replace it with an LED light. There is a cost to it, but the cost is well worth us not having to change the lights out and would be recouped through the savings in energy. So this would be, we're exploring it now, but this is something that could be coming through committee in the next month or so as well.
Awesome. Yeah, it'd be nice to see us change over and look at the long term. Is there any other miscellaneous discussion? I can't see on the screen. Mrs. Angela.
Mr. Tracy, I wanted to ask you about the stop signs that are solar. I know that was talked about before. Is that any work done on that, or is the cost in that, or maybe at certain areas that we can start using those stop signs that are solar?
So I think the solar stop signs probably have a need in certain areas, but like anything else, if you start putting them all over the place, then people will just get accustomed to the blinking stop signs, just like they do regular stop signs. So they have to be strategically placed, and also, we wouldn't want them in the residential areas because if they're blinking throughout the night, it could be bothersome to neighboring houses and things like that. So we have used signs like that with the blinking LEDs on them for pedestrian crossings and things, but if there's places where there's been high incidence of accidents, that may be another area where we consider something like that. But I don't think it's something that we'd ever institute, throughout the entire signage system in the city for traffic control devices. They're about $1,500 a piece, and they can get pretty expensive to start putting that across the city. And I just feel like, we've had the discussion before with just signs in general, when you just get immune to all the signs, and at first they're great, but then they just turn into like anything else. So we'll keep installing those as the traffic volume and accident counts tell us that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Mrs. Angeloff. That was actually, I had a discussion not too long ago with somebody about this. So, is there any other miscellaneous discussion? All right, I don't see any on my screen. Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mrs. Angeloff.
And I'll second the motion to adjourn.
And seconded by Mrs. Fry. Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting is now adjourned at 6:15 p.m.
Next up is Environmental Health and Social Services, Mr. Jaber.
Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services is meeting at 6:16 virtual. All members present noted, and also other members present also noted. Today we have no new requests for legislation, and opening this up for miscellaneous discussion to the members, please. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may ask the mayor, any updates with vaccinations for Barberton and/or warming centers? I did see there was an extension of it. If there's any updates.
We did have a warming center last week and this week at the Active Adult Center. Last week and today, no one has taken advantage of that, but we are prepared if someone does come in. We also have working with some nonprofits to provide food if need be, if someone does come in. On the vaccination side, there is an update. Previously, I was going to give this report later, but previously it was Giant Eagle and Suma Barberton that were the only places in town where you could get a vaccine. That's been expanded to include Walgreens and also Rite Aid on Worcester Road West. But then just outside of Barberton is the Norton Pharmacy on Greenwich Road, and also Acme stores, other healthcare systems, including Access Point, Children's Hospital, General, and I believe drug marts. And there's one up on 18. And so, and you don't have to stay within the city limits or even the county limits to get your vaccine. But there's more options, especially with the bad weather here in Barberton. So.
Thank you.
The only other question is how many vaccines does each place have? Some have more than others. Unused vials of vaccine at the long-term care facilities are being sent to the pharmacies like Rite Aid and Walgreens. So.
Does the health department provide any sort of numbers to what percentage of the population per zip code or city has received the vaccine, or at least the first shot?
They have not yet. Now they also, I've got to check now, but as of earlier today, they had not updated their local stats since the 11th. So all weekend they had not updated their stats. I've got to check again, but I think it's been such a small percentage that they haven't started keeping tabs on that. And the long-term care facilities don't necessarily have to check in with the health department. So they know they have a better record, obviously, of what they've given out and what the hospital networks have given out. But then the long-term care facilities and assisted living and even the schools now, if they're not working through the county, they're working directly through the state.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anybody else? I can only see Mr. Greer.
Hey, thanks, Chair. I know testing has really not been at the forefront of the COVID testing, and I just wanted to point out we do have a new business here in the city of Barberton, People's Check Services, and I just read today that they do offer no appointments. It is a cash service, though, but they do offer COVID testing, just to add on to some of the resources that we have here locally. Just so everybody knows, they're located at 101 5th Street Southeast here in the city of Barberton. It's a walk-in, no appointment needed.
Mr. Greer?
Yes.
Do you know if they provide antibody testing or the actual COVID testing?
Well, here's what
places similar to that provide the antibody.
Yeah, so here's what they said. I'm just looking at the post that they posted online 4 hours ago. They do nasal PCR, saliva PCR, and nasal rapid antigen. I don't know. It doesn't say anything about antibodies.
Okay. Thank you.
Does it mention the cost, Justin?
Yeah, it is. And like I mentioned, it is a cash service, but it looks like the rapid testing, it says 15 minutes for $80. The other services is 100 and 110. But it's just, it's nice to have that other resource available if you need it.
Thank you.
And seeing motion to adjourn, please.
I'll second that.
Mr. Griffin. And
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is Planning, Annexation, and Codes with Mrs. Angela.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's Tuesday, February 16th at 6:21. This is the Planning, Annexation, and Codes meeting. We are meeting virtual. All members of the committee are present, along with all council members and other guests as noted on my sheet. Topics of discussion: legislation request, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into agreement with the Summit County Department of Building Standards to allow county inspectors to serve as backup inspectors to conduct electrical, plumbing, and building inspections and declaring an emergency. And the letter requested that I received from Mr. Tracy also says this agreement would also allow for the county's chief building official to provide backup services as the city's chief building official. So all in all, this is, and I think I did see an article in the paper where some county, other cities were using other departments at the county for backup services. Mr. Tracy, I will, any questions, I will please direct those to Mr. Tracy. Mrs. DeBevick?
Thank you, Chair. I was just curious, is this just in case of an emergency, or if, for example, our department is sick? And then secondly, what kind of fee is involved?
Yeah, so the way we operate right now is we don't have in-house plumbing inspectors, dedicated plumbing inspectors, or electrical inspectors. So we use independent contractors, which don't cost us anything but minimal fee to have them go do the inspection. So we had a plumbing inspector who just passed away about 2 months ago from COVID. So we got behind in plumbing inspections, and then we also, our electrical inspector quit doing inspections for the city starting this year. So we were able to find new replacement independent contractors, but they're not easy to find. They're rare. The qualifications are not something you can come across all that often. So the building commissioner, with his history and his contacts, was able to get us in touch with 2 people to fill that role for now. Now, if they were to get sick or if they were just to be unavailable, we need to have coverage, as required by the Board of Building Standards. We have to have backup inspectors. So this agreement with the county is more a backup to a backup, I guess you could say, because we're using independent contractors already. But it just creates another level of protection, another level of insurance for us to make sure that we can fulfill our obligations, as a building stakeholder for the Board of Building Standards.
So is there a fee involved?
Yeah, you have to pay hourly. So we pay our plumbing inspectors and electrical inspectors anywhere from $35 to $45 an hour or per inspection. So it typically comes out to that it's about $35 to $40 per inspection. The county is $40 per hour for the inspection and $65 for the backup building commissioner. And those costs alone that doesn't include all the roll-up or anything. So that doesn't even cover the county's costs.
Are we already using, we're already using the county, aren't we?
Not in this capacity. So right now, anything we do is outside of normal hours, which is hard on our residents and businesses that need the inspections, if it's done with any type of county employee. So this will allow us to use county employees during regular business hours because they're working for the county.
Okay, because we had an inspection by a county electrician through Barberton, and it was during business hours.
Well, that part I don't know. I mean, they were able to fit it on their lunch. Maybe that doesn't.
Okay, I was just curious what the difference was. What brought on the actual contract?
Yeah, the contract on our end was strictly because for backup purposes. When Jim Balshinger left and before Roger came in, we didn't have those contacts. We didn't have those inspectors. Besides, what we had, and we knew they were phasing out, and then somebody passed away, and we saw the need to have these backup inspectors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe things will move a little bit quicker on these inspections too. Do you think, Mr. Tracy?
No, I don't know that it's really going to speed up the process at all because, like I said, we have people in place now. It's just in the fact that someone goes on vacation or someone gets sick, and as COVID moves on, we don't know what's going to happen. We're not going to get backed up, where we have to cancel inspections and push them off to the next week. It will create some efficiencies in that respect. And also it should make it more convenient for people to not have to make those changes because we had to make the changes as well.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the body? No questions? Okay, do I have a motion to bring this forth?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Mrs. Coburn first, Mr. Medges, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, thank you. Miscellaneous. I just have one thing that was brought to my attention, and I believe Mr. Trevor is here that he can speak on this too. But I did get, I didn't see because I'm not on it, but I did hear that on social media, talking about the townhouses on Austin Drive. I just want to clear up a statement that I believe was made, and it said that there was going to be public hearings for the planning, the building phase, and that they was going to have a couple public hearings. Well, there aren't any public hearings for the building part. There was 2 public hearings for the rezoning, as we do for all rezoning. There's 2 public hearings, but the final planning building plans do have to be approved by the Planning Commission. So that does have to be approved, but with having any public hearing on the building plans itself, I don't believe that's true. Mr. Trevor, would you like to say something?
Yeah, just to clarify, the rezoning, as you know, went before Planning Commission and then the 3 readings of council. The actual site plan, the subdivision plat will have to go before Planning Commission. So that's what will be reviewed, and that has to meet the development code. So that's the outstanding item there that will have to come back, and that will not come before council, just the Planning Commission.
Yes. Thank you very much. Any questions from anybody on the committee? Any questions for other council people? Mr. Jaber?
Thank you, Chair. Question for you also, and Mr. Trevor Hunt. Anything new with the co-part? I know we got tomorrow the planning commission. Any updates or anything about the co-part? About the standalone
Well,
building?
we're going to meet tomorrow at 5:30. We do have a planning commission meeting tomorrow at 5:30.
Yes, I know.
Mr. Trevor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, they'll be submitting a revised plan. So I think we worked with them on some landscaping, some building elevation changes, and then some changes to the joint use of conditions. And it seems like it's progressed rather well up to this point. So the rest within the planning commission members' hands. So we'll see after tomorrow's meeting there.
Awesome. None did. Just a quick question: did Norton okay with everything that we revised that they were asking about?
Yeah, Norton was on the same page. So
awesome.
Passed their conditional use hearing, I believe, last Tuesday.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Trevor. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mrs. Angela.
Yeah, Mr. Heidig.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Heidig. Mr. Heidig.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if you received email about the concerns off of Russell Avenue for a sawmill. If not, I can forward them to you.
Yes. No, I have them.
Okay. Just a quick note of concern because I won't be able to attend the Plan Commission meeting tomorrow. Down here, as Mr. Griffin can tell you, the concerns that this resident had is with 18-wheelers coming down possibly side streets there. Van Buren and those side streets could not nearly handle, especially Van Buren in the shape that it's in. I will be sending you an email, Councilor Angeloff, if you could pass it along to the commission there. Again, I won't be able to attend, but I do have some concerns about it, and I'll send them to you in the morning. Thank you much.
Thank you very much. There are concerns about that. I was down at that site, and there is a home that is right up against that, and Russell Avenue dead ends into the road dead ends, and there's 2 basketball hoops that are out there. The house is very close to the edge. I drove around that area, and my husband is very, very familiar with that area. And so I do have questions for the Planning Commission tomorrow, and I'm anxious to hear what they have to say too about that area there. I don't think a semi truck can even go down Russell to where it dead ends. The houses are very close to the road, so that is a concern. And like I said, I have talked to the gentleman that's been emailing. I've been emailing him, and I did check out that site personally. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But thank you for your concern.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Greer?
Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead.
Do you have a contact information on who we should direct public input for the Planning Commission?
It would be you can email it to Mr. Hunt, and he can read that or forward that on to Mr. Mulrick, who is chair of the Planning Commission.
Okay. And do you know if the Planning Commission has any direct contact info?
Direct contact info for what?
For the commission.
Excuse
to get
me?
a hold of the president directly for the.
Yeah, Mr. Hunt or Stacy Carr can give you that information.
Okay.
That you could email directly to the commission.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mr. Griffin, go ahead. Your mic on. I can't hear you. Thank you.
Okay. For that meeting tomorrow, is there any discussion about the Snyder Avenue entrance? Is that feasible, or is that just too far-fetched to enter from Snyder Avenue to Russell?
Well, we haven't had the meeting yet.
Well, I mean, could you just bring it up, just mention it?
So I'm not sure I'm not sure what I have some suggestions, and I haven't. Mr. Hunt can answer that.
One of the citizens down there was talking about it. That lives on Russell. He's been contacting me several times about the entrance onto Snyder.
Yes, I think he did all of Council.
Right. I understand.
Right.
But that was just a thought.
I received some correspondence on that. I know BCDC has been investigating that over the years, and they continue to do such. The issue is that ABC Railway owns a large tract of land that they would have to grant permission to any industrial user to an easement, more or less, or a dedicated right-of-way of some sort. So Scott Wagner will be at the meeting tomorrow to address that and where that stands. I know the city of Barberton has worked with BCDC. BCDC did sell off one of their lots on Snyder, and that the other thing is that the city of Barberton owns another lot there, 2 lots down from the one BCDC sold off. So that will be brought up at tomorrow's meeting, but I don't know where that stands, other than BCDC will be working to address that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Jaber?
Mr. Trevor Hunt, from the planning committee and all those planning director job, are you guys for this or against this right now? Are you wanting this? Are you approving this? Are you liking this? All that good stuff?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of issues to talk through on this one. So, from a positive standpoint, or from looking at it from the rezoning standpoint, what could be a positive is that we're limited with industrial land. So, you can't just pull land out of thin air. There's a finite amount of land in the city, especially industrial land. So, from a jobs perspective, I think this could mean a lot to the city. I mean, the parcels sat there I can see for over 20 years. It's been marketed, and there hasn't been any development as to date. So finally, there's some interest there in developing it. I do share the concern of residents that the public access needs to be improved there, no matter what happens. So, I think there's some questions that remain with that. So I'd be interested from hearing from BCD some of the holdups historically of what's limited access here. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yes, I think a lot of people have questions. I've got a list that I've already want to address PC tomorrow, and they want to change the zoning from light commercial to medium commercial. So that will be interesting tomorrow. So any other questions? I see none. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that
motion. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Medges? Do I have a second? Mrs. Coburn? And we are adjourned at 6:38. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Finance and Personnel, Mrs. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance and Personnel Committee has all members present this evening, as well as all of council and guests as noted on my sheet. The date is February 16th, Tuesday. The time is 6:39, and we are going to be meeting virtually. We have a couple requests for legislation this evening. The first is a draft ordinance titled Amendment of Civil Service Rules. An ordinance amending ordinance number 42-2020 to give the Barberton Civil Service Commission the flexibility in the testing process by allowing electronic applications and examinations and declaring an emergency. We had discussed this a couple of weeks ago, and this is we're just adding another way of for people to take the examination for classified service, and this proposal is that they would take this test, the civil service test, online at a designated location. The cost would be $60, and I think that they can do all their sign up and everything online. And since Mrs. Doherty is here tonight, if she would like to add anything to what I've said, I would appreciate her chiming in.
Certainly, Mrs. Fry. One thing I would like to add is that it's in addition to historical pen or pencil and paper test. It's not instead of, so I want to make that clear. It's just another testing method, and that the locations can be either in a testing facility, and if you have kids in college, or maybe you yourselves have had gone to a testing facility, I know I have, where you take these big tests. So some of them are SHRM testing, some college testing, some certifications for healthcare. Those are the ones I'm familiar with. And it's under strict proctoring. You can't take any kind of technical wearables in there. You can't have anything with you. You put it in a locker and you take the test, and there's a person behind in a glass booth watching all the test takers. That's one way. The other way is to take the test electronically from your home, which is also personally proctored by the testing vendor. Now, would one proctor get 2 or 3 candidates? That I can't answer. I don't know that right now, but they certainly get scrutiny. So they have to take their iPad, their computer, and sweep the room. You can't, you have to have shut doors. No one else can be in the room, and they expect you to go underneath tables, underneath the desk that you might be using, or your coffee table. And then they make you even show the ceiling and windows and doors and everything. You have to show all of that. You cannot wear smartwatches, and you cannot have anything else on your computer except for the electronic test. So they monitor, actually, from what I understand, they monitor your eyes. And if your eyes divert in a suspicious manner, they will flag the test. Again, I'm assuming that these are videotaped so that they get confirmation of what the proctor thought, but I don't know about that for sure, but the test does get flagged as a potential issue. So that's all I wanted to add. If you have any questions, any of you, I'm happy to try to answer them.
And in addition, the people that are taking this test can submit the results to anybody that in the area that is looking for, like, police officers, fire department personnel, and
as
so
long
on.
as that community is, yeah, that is correct. As long as that other community has an agreement with the same company, it's National Testing Network. So the thing there, and I talked it over with Jamie, the HR coordinator, and she says, Beth, if you think about it, any candidate that applies for police or fire, they apply to every community around that's happened to be giving a test at that time. That's not unusual. In fact, it's normal. So this really doesn't propose, it might, I mean, we could conjure up issues that it might create, but it's the same situation that we're in now, just a little bit different.
Right. Thank you.
Mrs. Fry, I just wanted to reiterate what Mrs. Doherty said about the testing. We shouldn't be leery at all about, even if they take it from home, that it's very secure. So they record your eyes, and it's impossible to cheat.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for Mrs. Doherty or anyone? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to call for this piece of legislation?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Mrs. DeBevick. Do I have a second? Craig, are you saying you're motioning because you're not
I'll
on?
second it. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Mr. Medges. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. We have another piece of legislation this evening. It is also a draft ordinance, and it is titled 2021 Operating and Capital Budget. An ordinance adopting a budget for various funds of the city of Barberton for the period beginning January 1st, 2021, and providing for the administration thereof and declaring an emergency. I believe that everybody got a copy of that budget. That it was in the draft. So did anybody have any questions about adopting this budget? Temporary budget.
This
No.
isn't This isn't the temporary, is it?
No, it's not the temporary. It's just the budget for various funds. We did the temporary earlier. Yeah.
Okay.
Slip at a time.
Okay. I haven't had a chance to go through all of it, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, this budget is going to replace the temporary budget. So, anyway, any other questions about that? No. Hearing none, do I have a motion to call for this piece of legislation?
Is this to go 3 readings, correct? Is that what we decided last? I thought we called for it last week. Did we not call it?
That was for the other budget. That's for the main budget. Let me see if this one had.
I believe it was called for last week, and then the first reading would be next week. And I'm scheduling a budget meeting after council's legislative meeting next week. Give council another week to go through it and ask any questions via email, and then we can meet after council next Monday.
So we are meeting after council next Monday, virtually?
Yes.
Okay. And as you get your questions, we should be sending them to the mayor so that he can have answers for us after our meeting on Monday. I mean, next Monday. Do I have a motion to call for this piece of legislation, or are there still some questions out there?
Carol, we already called for it. Called for it last week.
Yeah, we did, because we said we would do it on the 22nd. I'm sorry, it's on my agenda.
That's okay. I just one I exactly remember, but I thought we did.
Because I think they said the 3 readings would be March 22nd, which will get us right into that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, we did. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just am following my agenda. Okay, so is there any miscellaneous discussion for this? Or finance? And therefore, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I saw Carla's hand first, so I put her, and Nina Angeloff seconded the motion, and we are adjourned at 6:48 p.m.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fry. All right, we'll just go right into our meeting. Okay, this is Barberton City Council Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. The time is 6:49. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag,
of the United
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mrs. Angela?
Here, on the phone.
Gotcha. Mrs. Coburn? Here. Mrs. DeBevick?
Here. Sorry.
Mrs. Fry?
Here.
Mr. Greer?
Present.
Mr. Griffin?
Here.
Mr. Heidick?
Here.
Mr. Jaber?
Here.
Okay. Council Rule 103 states a regular and the committee of the whole meeting shall start at 7:30. Since we are starting earlier than this, we will need to invoke Council Rule 702. I need a motion, Mrs. DeBevick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to invoke Council Rule 702 to suspend Council Rule 103.
Thank you. And Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second that motion to invoke 702 to suspend 103.
Thank you. Motion was made by Mrs. DeBevick, second by Mr. Heidick to invoke Council Rule 702 to suspend Council Rule 103. Are there any remarks? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Citizens addressing council. We have one from Mr. Robert Augustinovich, and the clerk will read it.
Barberton City Council regarding CBA Article 31, sick leave, and CBA Article 22, overtime rate, and the appalling IAFF Local 329 CBA collective bargaining agreement. I support the work of all Barberton first responders and the work they do. I also support the completed joint fire study between Norton, Barberton to correct Barberton's appalling IAFF Local 329 sick leave and overtime rate. All other appalling disparity issues between all Ohio City employees, Barberton, Norton, public union, private union, and those not in a public union. What makes Barberton's 24-hour shift, 24 96-hour firemen, collective bargaining agreement, IAFF Local 329 special above 40-hour, 20-80-hour Barberton firemen and other Barberton City public employees, other cities, townships, and villages, public employees, and private union members, that they earn 8.3 hours sick time for every 80 hours worked without limit? And why are your Barberton Public Union 24 96-hour firefighters being paid overtime at the 20-80-hour firefighters rate and not at your normal hourly rate of pay for 24 96-hour firemen? This is appalling and wrong. Why would a Barberton City mayor do this for these 24-hour shift, 24 96-hour Barberton firemen earn 8.3 hours of sick time for every 80 hours worked above other 40-hour firemen and all other city employees? Why are these 24-hour shift firemen special? Who was Barberton mayor, and what year was this Article 31 sick leave section 2 added, changed in the IAFF Local 329 collective bargaining to make 24-hour shift, 24 96-hour firemen special above all Ohio public employees, public union employees, and private employees? From CERB Collective Bargaining Agreement, Ohio. Barberton Fire, IAFF Local 329, CBA Article 31, sick leave, Section 2, accrual. Employees assigned to 24 hours shall earn sick leave at the rate of 8 3/10 hours for every 80 hours worked or compensated. All other employees shall earn sick leave at the rate of 4 6/10 hours for every 80 hours worked or compensated. Sick leave shall accumulate without limit. These disparity issues in your public Barberton Fire Union, CBA, IAFF Local 329, Article 31 sick leave, and CBA Article 22 overtime rates are appalling and appear to be inconsistent with provisions of Ohio Revised Code. One being Section 124.38- and 124.39 covering all public collective bargaining agreements covering all other Barberton City employees of the appointing authority of the City of Barberton. Ohio Revised Code 124.38 sick leave, 124.38 sick leave. Each of the following shall be entitled for each completed 80 hours of service to sick leave of 4 6/10 hours with pay. Other regular full-time employees of other Ohio cities public workers and townships and villages fire departments shall be credited with sick leave at the rate of 10 hours per month or 15 8-hour work days per year for a total of 120 hours of sick time a year. And their overtime is at times and 1/2 their normal hourly rate of pay. There may be more appalling issues in the IAFF Local 329 collective bargaining agreement. Do the members of the Barberton Public Fire Union, IAF Local 329, support the completed joint fire department study between the City of Barberton and the City of Norton, Ohio Fire Departments? Will they come down off their fire truck and fix their appalling IAFF Local 329 CBA public union contract with citizens and Barberton and Norton they serve, and all Ohio cities, townships, and villages, and all public employees in Ohio? Again, I ask these first responders, what makes your Barberton 24-hour shift, 24 96-hour firemen, CBA, IAFF Local 329 special above all other Ohio cities, public employees, public unions, and private union members? Robert Augustinovich. And that's all I have as far as citizens addressing council.
You're muted, Mr. President.
Sorry. Okay, we'll go right into our committee meetings. First up is Planning, Annexation, and Codes of Mrs. Angeloff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning and Annexation and Codes met this evening virtually Tuesday, February 16th at 6:21. All members of committee were present. All of council was present, and guests as noted on my sheet. Topics of discussion: legislation request, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into agreement with the Summit County Department of Building Standards to allow county inspectors to serve as backup inspector to conduct electrical, plumbing, and building inspections and declare an emergency. Also, according to Mr. Tracy's letter to me, the agreement would also allow for the county's chief building official to provide backup services as the city's chief building official. Right now, we use independent electrical and plumbing inspectors. Unfortunately, we had one inspector that we used had passed away. They normally charge anywhere between $35 to $45. Using Summit County as a backup only, they charge $40 per hour and $65 per house for backup chief building official. And that was passed out of the committee. Second was miscellaneous discussion. I wanted to clarify public hearings on rezoning only. Mr. Jaber asked about Copart. They submitted a revised plan. Planning Commission will be meeting and asking questions and possibly voting on this tomorrow, along with the Russell Avenue, asking for a rezoning from light commercial to medium commercial, and that too will be in front of Planning Commission tomorrow at 5:30. And with that, I pass.
Thank you very much. Next up is Streets, Sidewalks, and Lighting with Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Streets, Sidewalk, and Lighting met today, February 16th, 2021 at 6:01 p.m. and we were virtual. All members of the committee were present and members of council and guests noted. There was no request for legislation. Miscellaneous discussion included Mr. Tracy providing information on the 2021 road resurfacing program, just responding specifically to two questions that I had, just inquiring about it. He stated that we have got estimates for a lot of roads, but the number of roads that we actually do and which ones are still to be determined based on the estimates that we got back from the contractors. Mr. Tracy also stated that they'll be looking into possible language to our ordinance to allow for them to issue parking bans with expectations. There was some feedback from Mrs. Doherty as well on that matter, and council will be given information when they figure that out. Mrs. Fry asked if the parking ban for the city is citywide or just for areas. The answer to that is that parking bans are citywide. Mr. Tracy also provided information on a potential lighting agreement that would replace on failure. It would replace street lights with LED lights. This would drop. It costs money to do this. However, in the long run, it would start saving the city money. Mrs. Angeloff inquired about stop signs with solar. These are stop signs that blink, and throughout areas that might be needed in the city. Mr. Tracy said that they'll look at the possibilities for these types of signage in areas that they might be needed, but that's not something that would be citywide. There was no other miscellaneous discussion. Street, sidewalk, and lighting adjourned at 6:15 p.m. And with that, I pass.
Thank you. Next up is City Utilities with Mrs. Colbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met last Monday, February 8th. We were virtual. We had no current legislation. Our miscellaneous discussion, we discussed that we were looking at grant applications as things for the dam and things like that as those became available. There was some question about water pressure on the property that we just rezoned up in Austin Estates. And there was some questions about some green markers in different areas being a part of our utilities. It turns out those are gas from the gas company getting ready to do work. We had no other discussion, and with that, I pass.
Thank you. Next up is Public Welfare and Safety with Mrs. DeBevick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Welfare and Safety met last Monday, February 8th. Virtual, with all members present as well as all others marked. We had no new requests for legislation. We did have some miscellaneous discussion. It was regarding the ordinance in which we were authorizing the scrapping of vehicles, something that we do on a regular basis. It was discussed about whether or not it would be feasible to auction the vehicles off. And so we had some discussion about that. And we also had some discussion about the structure fire that there was in town that day. And with that, Public Welfare and Safety will pass.
Thank you. Next up is Rules, Marketing, and Development with Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules, Marketing, and Development met on February 8th. We met virtual. All members present and all others noted. We had no requests for legislation, but we did have matters of discussion per Lisa Miller, Law Director. We discussed procedures needed to establish for receipt and readings of emails, letters from concerned citizens. Councilman Thomas Heidick is currently drafting legislation to be presented for consideration. A motion was made to adjourn. Thank you. With that, I pass.
Thank you. Next up is Environmental Health and Social Services with Mr. Draper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services met February 16, 2021 virtually. All members were present. Other members also noted. We had no new requests for legislation. Then we opened up for miscellaneous discussion. We had updates from the mayor about vaccinations, locations. We also had an update about the warming center at the Active Adult Center. It was opened up last week and this week. And then we adjourned at 6:21. And with that, I pass, sir.
Thank you. Next up is City Properties, Parks, and Recreation with Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Properties, Parks, and Recreation met last Monday, February 8th at 6 p.m. All members present, plus guests noted. We had no new requests for legislation. Miscellaneous discussion. Again, the Active Adult Center has been opened as a warming center from 8 to 4:30. We also got an update about the skate park meetings. I did receive email today that Director Tracy has been looking at utilities underneath, so the project is, in its phases that it needs to be. And we adjourned at 6:06. With that, I pass.
Thank you. Last but not least is Finance and Personnel with Mrs. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance and Personnel Committee met tonight, February 16th at 6:39. We met virtually. All members of the committee were present, as well as all of council and guests as noted. We had one new piece of legislation this evening. It was it's titled Amendment of Civil Service Rules. It is an ordinance amending ordinance number 42/2020 to give the Barberton Civil Service Commission the flexibility in the testing process by allowing electronic applications and examinations and declaring an emergency. We had discussed this a little bit last week, and this week Mrs. Doherty gave us an explanation about how things would work and how the proctoring would work, and that that applicants can take the test at a testing site or in their own home. And this is a secure way to take the test. The results from these tests can be shared with other departments in the area that are looking for civil servants like police officers or firemen or what have you. And we are going forward with that.
This conference will now be recorded.
The other item that we discussed tonight was an ordinance adopting a budget for various funds of the city of Barberton for the period beginning January 1st, 2021, and providing for the administration thereof and declaring an emergency. We all have our budget books, and we are looking at them and creating questions and things that we would like to ask about, and we have been asked to email those questions to the mayor. We are supposed to have a budget meeting next Monday after our regular council meeting. And with that, finance will pass.
Thank you. Okay, mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let's talk about the weather. Last night, obviously, we put together a snow ban or parking ban based on what was being forecasted. But Summit County Sheriff did issue a snow emergency for hazardous roadways and blowing snow, which was basically level 1 snow emergency. The schools in Barberton and in the surrounding areas were all closed today. We didn't get the snow that they were calling for technically because, they did call for anywhere between 2 and 12 inches of snow. And I think we got about 4. So I guess we did get what they were calling for, but that's kind of very broad there. But temperatures are expected to stay in the 20s over the next few days with the possibility of another snowstorm this Thursday. Obviously, if you could hear the snow last night or the storm, it included wind, snow, sleet, ice, and we're looking at freezing temperatures. Supposed to be close to 0 tomorrow morning. So kind of throwing it all at us right now. We were in contact. We did not open up an EOC, but we were in contact internally, and we were in contact with First Energy, who is preparing for the winter storm and possible outages as well. So on the health side, I did receive a packet from Summit County Health, but it mostly contained, I'm still going through it, but mostly contained COVID-related information. And on the COVID front, we are seeing positive trends in the numbers associated with COVID throughout the country. Experts are saying that this is the reduction is due to the highs that we saw resulting from the holidays, that those are coming down. More people are taking this seriously and adhering to all the mandates. The colder weather is keeping people at home. So, and let's look at the numbers. There's a fine balance between the number of cases, the ones that have had it and are getting better, deaths, and the number of vaccines. So a lot of things kind of at play to get some numbers. They are still looking at canceling things. I think the most recent I heard was the Columbus Arts Festival is being canceled. So when you're looking at festivals or events, great modifications to those events are happening like they did in 2020, or they're being canceled. So we'll see with the numbers coming down if other events are being canceled. So we'll keep an eye on that. The governor did announce last week a home relief grant program, which is $100 million for low-income Ohioans. And this goes for rent, mortgage, and utilities, which, everything, water, sewer, wastewater, electric, gas, oil, trash bills. So that'll flow through the county, and we're working with Summit County on the application process. This application process will flow to the municipalities, but it won't be ready until the first or second week of March. So we've got a lot of work between now and then. So we'll get information out to all council members once that gets solidified here soon. So this will really help a lot of residents throughout the area. We've been talking internally for a number of weeks, but the CDC made it official that wearing more than one mask two masks are better than one. Especially if you look at a lot of the commercialization of masks. So depending on what your mask is made up of, if you have a surgical or N95 against your face and then something more decorative on the outside, that will really help mitigate the spread of COVID. So in terms of numbers, Summit County is still the fifth county in the state with the highest numbers. But we did move from the second highest in deaths to the fourth over the past week. So the number of deaths have gone down in comparison to other counties. No county in the state is at the highest level, which is purple. Summit County and 84 counties in the state are at level 3, which is red, and 4 counties remain at level 2 or orange. So this has stayed the same for the last few weeks. Governor DeWine has an online portal showing Ohioans where the COVID vaccines are available, and you can search by zip code or city. So there's a lot of features there. The state's Attorney General, Dave Yost, and Summit County Health both have websites with important COVID information and guidance. In terms of the vaccine, obviously throughout the country, the availability of enough vaccine is a growing issue. All the logistics and the infrastructure have been kind of put together. How many people do you need for a mass vaccination? Where are you going to hold it? What does that look like? So that's all put together. It's just getting the vials of vaccine. So around here, we've talked about Blossom. We've talked about using parks. We've talked about using schools. We've talked about stadiums, football stadiums, things like that. So large parking lots. Shopping centers. So we've got all that put together, we just need the vaccines. Yesterday, February 15th, the vaccine was open to any Ohioan with severe congenital, developmental, or early onset inherited conditions. And obviously anyone that's 65 years of age or older is eligible to get the vaccine. Summit County has 31 vaccine locations. And as I mentioned earlier, Giant Eagle in Barberton, Suma Health, Walgreens on Worcester Road North, and Rite Aid Pharmacy on Worcester Road West have been listed as having the vaccine. Just outside of Barberton is Access Point, Acme, Norton Pharmacy, Drug Marts, and all the hospital systems. The two vaccines that are being fast-tracked to get FDA approval, Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca, there was some talk last week on the effectiveness. Those are one-shot vaccines, where Pfizer and Moderna are two-shot vaccines. The one-shot vaccine is 67 to 80% effective, but the difference is the people who are getting the Pfizer and Moderna, they're seeing that it may have a higher effective rate, but if you get COVID after having those, you're more likely to go to the hospital. Where Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca is a one-shot deal, less likely to go to the hospital if you do get COVID afterwards. So a lot of things at play there. But again, they stress that no vaccine is 100%, and even the flu vaccine is only about 35%. So a lot of it has to do with the mutations and the different strains. So more information is coming out almost by the hour from scientists, from WHO, CDC, all the health departments, hospital networks, all of this coming together. So I'm sure that'll change. This Thursday, February 18th at 4 p.m., Summit County Health and EMA will hold a COVID vaccine question and answer session. This will be virtually via Facebook, Summit County Executive, or Facebook, Summit County Public Health. And we'll put information out on that as well. On the budget, would like to set up a meeting for next Monday, immediately following Council's legislative meeting. One question that did come up was about the capital budget. We've got about $300,000 set aside for land acquisition, and Councilwoman Fry asked about that. The $300,000 for land acquisition is in respect to the FEMA stormwater program, so 14th Street, 15th Street, and Arthur Avenue. So that's where that money's for. But any other questions I get, including that one, I'll put down on paper and email to council, hopefully by Friday. So if you have any questions, so everyone knows what other council members have asked, and you have those answers. So typically with the council budget hearings, like last year and previous years, I know it's after council, so we'll meet, an hour or however long it takes, and then set up another one. We've got a little bit of time, to set up one after each council meeting moving forward, or a separate meeting, maybe on a Thursday evening, as long as it doesn't conflict with schedules or other boards and commissions. So. And then finally, open office hours are scheduled for Saturday, March 6th at the Active Adult Center from 9 a.m. to 11. And all mandates and rules and regulations will be strictly enforced. I did this kind of skipped last year, except for December, and we were able to put something together. I'm sorry, I had it in September. No one showed up. I had it in December, and I had several people, 5 to 6 people show up. So we'll do that again in March, and as long as we can, we'll continue to have open office hours throughout the year. So that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, is there any remarks from council members? Mrs. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've been meaning to say this for a couple weeks now, but Barberton has lost 2 civil servants in the last month. And the first is a longtime police officer, Mr. Danton Adair. He was 72 years old and he died on January the 26th. He had been a police officer in Barberton for 33 years. Also, Ron Kochis was a former Ward 5 council person, and he passed away as well. So please keep their families in your thoughts. I also wanted to say that today I read an article about the 16th Street fire, and the people that suffered the losses were very complimentary about Barberton, and they even mentioned that Mr. Jaber had taken donations for them through his drive-through, so I'd like to thank him for doing that. And they said they're going to look for a house in Barberton because of the fact that everybody here is so caring and helpful. Also, there has been a lot of questions about the drug overdoses and where we stand with that. There's also an article in the paper today about drug overdoses, and they said that they think that they're on par with how they were before the pandemic, but the fact that people aren't going to the hospitals because of having an overdose, they don't have good numbers on that, but I don't think that that has fallen off any. And with that, I will pass.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr.
Greer.
Yeah, I just had with hopefully Mr. Hunt's still on the meeting. I was just wondering about the Planning Commission meeting tomorrow. Is that public? Is it going to be streamed? And if it's public in person?
Yes, I'm still here. The meeting will be open to the public. I think there's a capacity. It's on the second floor in the council chambers. So I think most members will be attending virtually.
Okay. Will this be streamed as well?
We're using the Barberton Courts account, and I think there's a limitation on how we access that. So I'm going to go over that with Bob and Cravati tomorrow morning, but last time we did not stream it, as you may remember. There's some limitation there. I don't know what it is, but we're not, I guess, required to, since the meeting is technically open to the public. So
Right. Well, I'd like to see it streamed if possible, if we have the ability. But that was all I had, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Heidi?
Thank you, Mr. President. Regarding Chairman Griffin with the Rules Committee with the writings for the Citizens Address in Council, barring any objections and at the direction of the chairman, I can submit it so we can have it in the Rules Committee as early as Monday to put it on our agenda.
Thank you. Mr. DeBevick?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm sneezing. I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Greer's question and ask if we as council members are able to stream virtually for the Planning Commission meeting, or if we would have to attend in person.
I can send the link to all planning or to all council members.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, nobody else. We are adjourned at 7:23. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.